So I've been noticing a pattern of confusion that seems to be spreading, and I wanted to clear it up. It's the difference between myth and story. So, what seems to be going on generally in the world is people are misapplying patterns left, right, and center to all kinds of things in all kinds of ways. And they're jumping from topic to topic, right? So politics fails them, they jump into science, science fails them, they jump into authority, authority fails them, they jump into talking about something else. The hot new thing right now is story and mythos. And now we seem to have a misconception. And so what I like to do is propose a framing, right? That's what I'm doing with most of these videos. I'm saying, if you think about the world this way, life gets easier, right? Not, not trying to smooth over or eliminate the problems of life. That's not possible, and it would be bad for you. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, though, is help to point you towards a better way to think about these things so that you're not confused. So here's my proposal, and this matches some of the indications of the definition of mythos. A mythos must contain a supernatural character. That's it, it's a requirement. Okay. And so in a mythos, you may not have, but you may have a hero, right? Heroes are born or made by the gods or God, or maybe indirectly, right? Maybe touched by something that gives them supernatural powers, like powers beyond what a regular human character would have. Okay. In all cases in literature, that's what a hero is. Okay. There are heroic deeds where a human rises to do something that only a hero would normally dare do with confidence, we'll say. Whether the human has confidence doing it or not is not actually relevant. And this is opposed to story. Now, stories are descriptions of manifestations. You could call them accurate or not. Right? This is the fiction, nonfiction descriptor. But I think accurate, right, or accurate and corresponding to, we'll say, independently verifiable events. That's what a story is about, right? If there's a supernatural component, it's not a story. It's a mythos. The reason why I'm making this distinction in this way is multifold. The biggest reason is that we need mythos, and we can't confuse it with story, and we have been, right? Because mythos has abstractions in it, and is therefore, I think Jordan Peterson, of course, uses this horrible word meta. Is meta true, right? It's truer than true, which is a weird way to talk. In other words, it has something in it that helps us no matter where we're at. And it doesn't only have one thing. So you can't say the moral of the story is, when you're talking about a mythos, because it doesn't have one moral. Right? There's lots of lessons to be learned in a myth. And the lessons that you learn from a myth will change as you go through time, because you've changed, right? And the world's changed, but you've changed. That's the important part. Story doesn't have to change, and you can engage with it and get only one lesson from it, or none. It can be pure entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that. Stories can do nothing but entertain. That's fine. A mythos, that's not true for, right? And that's the problem. And the reason why this is important is because when you squish the two together, you get weird effects. Like there's a hero and an anti-hero. Okay. The anti-hero is an identification against. Don't do that. There's no reason to do that. Heroes are not perfect characters. They never were. You're going to have a hard time in literature finding me one. But, if you can, put it in the comments. I'd love to see it. It could be an outlier, right? Now, what are the side effects of this? Well, the side effects of this are a flat world. When you think all stories are mythos or could be mythos, you flatten the world. You reduce everything. You compress it. And that can create a problem because then people get the idea, oh, Tolkien wrote a mythos. I can write a mythos. Well, A, you're an idiot and you can't. B, you're not Tolkien. And C, you have to have a good definition of mythos. And you don't. Right? If you look at Lord of the Rings, how many storylines are there? See the hint? How many storylines are in the Lord of the Rings? How many characters change and go on journeys, different journeys, and have different changes? See why this hero's journey nonsense is nonsense and doesn't work? Right? Because it doesn't apply to mythos at all, ever, because a myth is multiple stories, right? That's what it is. A single story would be indistinguishable from a myth, except for the supernatural component. Oops. Right? And so when you're talking about the epic of Gilgamesh, there's more than one story in there, right? And this is the problem. Mythos is not one story. Mythos is made up of many stories. That's why the distinction is important. See the vertical causality? Right. See the flattening when you don't do that? Right. Stories have protagonists and antagonists. Those are distinct descriptions and representations of concepts that you can get around. They're identifications for a certain ethos, a certain telos, right? Antihero is an identification against. That's why it doesn't work, and there's no such thing. And you shouldn't use that term ever, right? The implication in using antihero is that hero good, antihero bad. But again, I don't know what literature you're reading to come to that conclusion, because it's not in the literature that I can tell. And that's actually really important. You can't just recapitulate what literature is because you feel like it. That's not going to work. There's a tradition and a history that was discovered or created, doesn't matter which, or manifested is probably a better word than created, over time, and it works. And you critiquing it don't know why it works or how it works, and you're probably never gonna. And you don't need to. So who cares, right? Don't care or have relevance for things that you don't need to care about or have relevance for. Relevance resolution is important, right? So I want you to think about this carefully. There are myths and there are stories. Now, where do I think it went wrong? Comic books. I have this thing about Batman and Superman, right? That's part of the picture. If you think about these things, Superman is a god given godlike powers, and all the other gods, at least in the beginning, are gone. Right? It's a vanishment of godlike powers from the world. He's then anonymous. He hides his skills, his superior position, right? He flattens himself, right? But in flattening himself, because you can't actually get away with that, look for that pattern in the world, flattening not working, like with antihero. What he does is he bifurcates himself, cuts himself into two creatures. Of course, you can't do that. There's transition time and stuff involved, and so you're lesser on both ends. Sometimes you're not paying attention, and you're being newspaper man, and you miss saving a bunch of people from a disaster. I mean, that would have to happen, right? You're not full-time Superman, right? Sometimes you're being Superman, and you miss a story deadline, and now you get fired. Yep, that's going to happen because you're bifurcating the people or the person into two people, and that's too costly. And so you get less than two halves of people, right? The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. We don't have a whole with that, right? On the other end, you've got Batman elevating himself to a creature with supernatural powers from below. Okay, so you get Superman, top-down emanation from above, flattened, corrupted, split necessarily, right? In order to construct stories around that concept, bang, problems are created. Right? Then you've got Batman uses money and technology. Interesting. Two materialist things, right? To become more like Superman. And then weirdnesses of weirdnesses. It's Batman versus Superman. It's emanation versus emergence. Superman emerges. I'm sorry. Batman emerges from the bottom with money and technology and builds up. Superman emanates from another planet down onto ours, and the two fight. Can't make this stuff up. If you believe you do not have a religion, one will be provided to you without your knowledge or consent. These patterns are real, and they're there. And so comic books destroyed storytelling, and they destroyed myth. I wish they hadn't. I don't dislike comic books or anything. I think they're fine entertainment. But because of other conditions, they no longer act as mere entertainment. That may or may not be the fault of the comic book creators or whatever. I don't. That's a video for another day, right? But it's something to watch out for. So I wanted to give this a shot, see how this resonated with people, and maybe give you a sense for the importance of things like understanding literature properly and not getting confused by the Joseph Campbells of the world who are just wrong, and having an appreciation for things that are complex and a lot deeper than you probably understand or have been given to believe up until this point, so that you don't get entangled in arguments about them, or worse yet, following these little cults of personalities about them, because it's very, very dangerous. And we don't have much of a choice in a world where the church has receded and we don't understand religion is inevitable. So, look, let me know in the comments, all right, how good a job I did about at least introducing the importance of this. And if you want more, again, comment, and maybe I can do more and explain this more completely, or highlight some aspect that maybe is missing. I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole of like history of literature or anything crazy this time. But if that's something we need to do, or if there's a video you want me to critique about this topic, comment and maybe I'll do it. In the meantime, thank you very much for your time and attention.